Hey y'all, it's a new day in the workroom. I've always wanted to say that, so I figured I would throw it in. Today I'm drawing Jackie Cox and talking a little bit about her run. She is probably the smartest queen that we've had on Drag Race. I mean, I don't want to compare her to anybody else. Like, Sasha was a very, very smart queen. But Jackie was one of the smart queens that, like, didn't get in their own head. Like, it's become a trope at this point to have a smart, intelligent drag queen that gets in their head and messes up, right? But I don't really think we got that story from Jackie. Like, yeah, she spent a couple of weeks in the bottom and she lip synced for her life, but for the most part, Jackie had a really, really great run. And I honestly, watching this season, thought that she was going to win a challenge at any moment. I can't believe that it took so long for her to get a win. I think she's so talented and so intelligent. If you haven't watched her What You Packin' video, you don't really get to see just like how bright she is, but like watching that, it just like sealed the deal. Like, okay, intelligence. Because everything that Jackie said in that was just like very, very thought out, very precise, very concise. You know, it was just perfect. So here I'm just drawing this look. I wanted to base it off of the photo. I'll insert it here, but I wanted to base it off of the photo that she's like getting her fitting done, and it's such a kind of like attractive, hot photo, like for no reason. It's just kind of sensual, the pose. And I fell in love with it, and I thought I wanted to draw it like in full drag, but this is like a masterclass in failure. This drawing, I redrew things so many times that I had to edit out like large chunks of me just like redrawing. And it's one of those things, like, I knew when I started like doing the sketch that it wasn't going to work, but I kept pushing it and trying to get that pose right. And like, this one arm is successful, but it just doesn't overall become successful, right? So just keep trying, I guess, and pushing through. I mean, failing, and then finally like pushing through and succeeding. This one was one of those that like I could not have anything go right for it the whole time. I didn't like the face. I didn't like the hands. I didn't like the feet. I didn't like the wrinkles. Hey, call back to last week. It just wasn't working for me. And so I just kept trying and trying and trying. And normally I can draw something really fast. This one took me 2 times as long as I normally draw, just because I struggle so much with this dress. And the proportions kind of feel weird, right? We don't see these proportions in dresses anymore, but this is like a very famous silhouette. And so for us, like in modern time, it just kind of doesn't feel right. So like I kind of like went into that drawing thinking like, God, this is like a cool dress, and this will make a really, really cool drawing, but these proportions are weird. And they're not, though, because if you look at the reference in history, like, this is where those dresses hit. And so I just kind of like battled with that. And I think that maybe a lot of this could have been solved had I like sketched out the feet and the legs to begin with and based everything around that, but I didn't. So, you know, I guess that's my own fault. I'm really happy with overall the way that this ended. I think that it turned out exceptionally well, and it's one of my favorite drawings that I've done in a little while. I know I'm going to say that about every drawing, but you know, as much as I struggled through this one, it was such a payoff for me to see it finally come together at the end. And again, I'm just drawing and drawing and drawing and redrawing. I think I drew each hand 3 to 4 times, fingers tons and tons of times, and I kept posing. Like, I would stand there and pretend that I was in a pageant, and I was a pageant drag queen, and was just like giving the, for lack of a better word, spirit fingers. I knew that I wanted to be very dainty, delicate hands, and I didn't want to skimp on those because I felt like it was such a part. And I even tried a technique of like drawing nails on gloves so that it looked more like hands, and nothing just seemed to work. But you know, that's art sometimes. And here I'm just trying to hone in a little bit closer to Jackie. She has a very, very unique way that she draws her lips, which I really like. And so I just took off of the more generic lips and moved into her actual lips. Here I'm mirroring the hand like I always do, trying to figure out exactly like where I want it before I draw the new hand. So I kind of like it a little lower. I think it's a nice balance to the way that her weight is kind of shifted. So I do that. And then I, of course, redraw this hand 3 or 4 times. But yeah, I think it's great because I'd had such a break drawing that some of these things that like were very natural to me just don't feel very natural anymore. And that's one of those things like drawing hands and arms. Like I took a break from drawing drag race art from November to April, May, I don't even know when I started back. And so, that's the thing to think about. Like taking breaks is good and healthy, and it helps you like look at things in a new way. You may lose a little bit of progress, but for me, it was so refreshing and so rewarding to take care of myself and to draw art that I wanted to draw that wasn't drag race stuff. So this is a technique I use often. I will draw a basic shape and kind of flesh out that shape in a color, and then I'll draw line art on top of it. And I do this a lot. If it's something that I've never drawn like a pose, I will block out this pose in kind of a silhouette, right? And then I will flesh out from there. And I think for me, I think more in negative space than I do positive space. So like looking at the hand, I don't think like, oh, this is a nice hand. I look at the background and I kind of like feel like how it looks in space. And so maybe my brain is wired a little differently than most artists, that they look at the line art and they're like, let me look at this right. But I look at the spaces in between it, because when I look at my hand, I can see a very concise shape. Like it's a very elongated, rounded rectangle when you separate your forefinger and your thumb, right? And so that's kind of what I was doing as I was drawing these hands. I was just constantly looking at the shapes that my hands were making and not necessarily looking at the finger shape. Here again, I've talked about this before, but just basically figuring out how to turn these shapes in space. And that's how I foreshorten. I just turn and turn and turn until it gets right. And again, I struggled with where these feet should be, because I felt like the whole time looking at this, the proportions were wrong, but they really weren't. They really fit in with the size that I normally draw. And looking at the leg, I think the leg is a perfect size for the shape of the body, and even arms and legs. And head. So it just like threw me. And I think that maybe I was getting into my head, as I talked about earlier, the drag queens do. But yeah, I think I just overthought this so much because I wanted it to look exactly right. And when I kind of gave up some of that control and just like shifted things around to make myself feel good, then I think I finally like said, okay, this is nice. So yeah, I focus on giving her a wider stance and just kind of tighten up some of these folds that, I struggled with these folds. And it goes back to, I just don't have a lot of experience with them. And I think that a little bit of it had to do with the shape of this dress, but I realized like when I pushed that side into perspective, that it seemed to be like, okay, this is a dress now, and this isn't just some like wavy line. So we've all laughed along with Jackie about how she's the dad of the season and the dad dancing and the dorky glasses. But like, I don't know if I met Whoopi, how I would greet her. Like, if I'd be like, I loved you in Sister Act, which I've seen a million times. Or like, I loved you in Star Trek. Because let me tell you, Whoopi in Star Trek is so iconic. And I know that she's known for these more famous roles, but there is something about the role that she plays in Star Trek. I think it's Guinan. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's Guinan. It just is so great. And when she's talking to Wesley Crusher about like heartbreak and just the unexpected way that she talks to him about that in the show, oh my gosh, it changed something in me. There was something about the way that she embodied that role that I get it. I get why Jackie nerded out over that role. And I love that about Jackie. Jackie is so dorky, and it's so refreshing because she's not trying to be anybody else. She's all about her heritage and who she is. And it's so nice because a lot of times we get on queens that are just like, I'm the best. I want to be on top. I want to be the winner of Drag Race. And Jackie just kind of takes a different perspective and a different trajectory. And it's not really like sometimes it's about people like pushing their brand and what they're going to do after Drag Race. But this just like never felt that way. Like every single one of Jackie's confessionals felt like they were full of heart and full of life and just full of like passion. And it's just, ugh, I can't tell you. I don't know. This season was just such a good season for the amount of like heart and passion and just love these girls have for themselves as people and the art of drag. And I'm just going to kind of finish up here. I add in the background and I just kind of continue the polka dot motive. I don't think this needs anything. The dress is so pretty and I love the way that it's rendered in my style. I add a little bit of shading and kind of finish that off. I create a mask on top of the yellow so that I can shade in the yellow without drawing on top of it, and then the darker colors just shaded under it. But if you want to follow me, I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter as Werk Zine, and you can support my Patreon. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I love you and hope to see you next time. Thanks, guys. Bye.